listening to 96.9 FM, WHYR LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio.
All right, I gotta go. Good
Listen online
morning,
at
WHYR. You're listening to 96.9 FM, WHYR LP, Baton Rouge Community Radio.
This is Eric Hatfield along with Coach Perry Daniels, and we are here to bring you the latest, the greatest, the best, and the most entertaining in high school, college, and professional sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Good morning out there in Baton Rouge. This is Eric Hatfield. I'm here with Coach Perry Daniels. You are listening to 96.9 WHYR LP Baton Rouge Community Radio. This is the Louisiana All American Sports Show. Perry, it's a beautiful Saturday morning, isn't it?
Can you say playoffs?
Playoffs? Are you kidding me?
We've got high school playoffs started last night here in Baton Rouge, here across the state of Louisiana. We're going to start off the high school roundup with the number 1 ranked team in Class 3A. It's the WHYR Cubs. And they beat St. Louis Catholic last night pretty bad. They beat them 45-10. Nick Brosette rushed for 238 yards on just 10 carries. He had 4 touchdowns. Nick Brosette, the former LSU, the future LSU running back. So you folks listening around the world, you think that the purple and gold running backs are just this year. No, we've got more talent coming next year. Nick Brosette, remember that name. 238 yards on 10 carries last night and 4 touchdowns. Let's move on to St. Amant. They lose to East Ascension. They lose to East St. John. St. Amant lost to East St. John last night, only scoring 7 points in the contest. Parkview Baptist, they beat E.D. White 14-0 to move on to the second round. Central downs Como 34-13. St. John beat Christian Life 34-30. Plaquemine beat Washington Marion. Plaquemine beat Washington Marion 28-12.
In that game, Julius Marasslin, 169 yards, 2 touchdowns on 26 carries. Marasslin eclipsed the 2,000-yard rushing mark on the season.
That's awesome, man. I'm glad to see Marasslin get over 2,000 yards. We knew from watching his stats all season, Eric, that he was going to challenge that record, that 2,000-yard mark.
Right.
Southern Lab, Derek Payton, his Southern Lab Kittens, all over the Ascension Christian squad, 52-0.
Oh.
52-0. Down in the bottom, actually in Gonzales, where the McKinley High Panthers traveled to play East Ascension for the second time this year. In the first game, Eric, East Ascension jumped out on McKinley 21-0.
Right.
And last night, guess what?
They jumped on top 21-0.
21-0.
And, it's becoming, we've covered a lot of McKinley games this year. It's becoming really the same old story with McKinley. They battled back, cut it down to a reasonable deficit, cut it down to 21-28 if I remember correctly. But, once again, they just did not have the extra oomph to hang on and get over on a very, very loaded East Ascension team. Chad Hill of East Ascension, by the way, 5 catches, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And Joshua Walker ran for 95 yards on 20 carries yesterday. No Sion Palele, the LSU committee, no problem, it seemed like last night for East Ascension.
No problem. And Coach Signator, hey, man, this is one of those tough years. Keep at it, perseverance. Good luck to you next year, man. Hopefully you guys can end up with a better record than you did this year.
Well, in that game, and I'll just wrap it up real quick, is Marquise Kegler actually played a quarterback last night, and that was tough. He had 3 completions, he had 2 interceptions, if you will. That tells you what a tough break they had. Brandon Butler did have 111 yards on 18 carries, 6.2 yards a carry, but that tells me that Tyrone Scott, the young man we've talked about over and over and over again, didn't play, and obviously their starting quarterback, Travion Alexander, who is a legitimate passing threat, clearly didn't play last night. I don't know if his shoulder's still bothering, but that was just a tough break for the Panthers.
And those of you that just joining us for the first time maybe this year, Marquise Kegler transferred from Estruma High. He was the quarterback at Estruma last year, and now he's the quarterback over at McKinley. He started off playing tight end or receiver at McKinley, and Alexander went down. And Eric and I have been saying for the last couple of times that we covered McKinley that he really hasn't been the same.
No.
Alexander.
He has not. Now, ever since he went down and came out in that game, he hasn't thrown the ball the same. He had good downfield, still has good downfield vision, but his passes also had pretty good touch on them. They've been overthrown wide, so injuries will do that, especially at the high school level.
Exactly. So Kegler stepped in last night, didn't get the job done as the Spartans advance and McKinley Panthers get ready for the basketball season.
All right, so do we have more high school scores?
We do. We have Dutchtown versus Woodlawn.
Yeah, definitely want to get into that.
Dutchtown beat Woodlawn 41-20 last night as the Griffins advance out of 5-5A, the 5-5A co-champions, along with Catholic High, who ended up with a bye this week.
Well, let's see. There's some numbers that kind of jumped off the page in that game. That was a very unusual game last night between Woodlawn and Dutchtown. You have Dutchtown, Brant Fritsch, the quarterback, who we saw a little while ago at McKinley, who looked razor sharp. 5 of 17. Sounds terrible, but those 5 completions, 212 yards, 4 touchdown passes. He completed 5 passes, 4 for touchdowns.
Wow.
Cameron Joshua, that was number 80. That was the fellow who made a couple of spectacular catches in the McKinley game.
Yes.
84 yards receiving on 2 touchdowns. Also, Torrance Mosley, 88 yards receiving on 2 touchdowns. Woodlawn, they hung in there, but their quarterback, Charles Brooks, now let me read you another stat line. 21 of 43 for 290 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sounds pretty good, right? Problem is, you turn the ball over, it's very, very hard to win. Would you like to take a guess of this near 300-yard performance, how many interceptions that Mr. Brooks threw? Yes. 5.
It's tough to win when you throw 5 interceptions.
5!
It's tough to win. Yeah, it's hard to beat anybody. Little sisters of the poor when you throw 5 interceptions.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, that kind of wipes out an otherwise gaudy performance.
Rounding this high school segment out, Terra lost to Broke Bridge 35-0. Northeast beat Lakeside 28-12. All you Scotlandville Hornet fans, you guys had the week off. Get ready for next week as you take on Rummel.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be on like Donkey Kong. They got to go to Rummel, correct?
They have to go, let me check that, Eric.
All right, that's going to be one heck of a battle either way.
Yes.
Rummel Raiders every year are very, very difficult with which to contend.
Right.
So, is that the last of our high school scores?
That's it.
All right, I got 1 or 2 more. I got out of New Orleans for any of you listeners.
Yes.
Opelousas Catholic 28, Newman 26. I think the Newman faithful are just salivating and waiting for Archie Manning's one of Archie Manning's grandkids to get there. Peyton Manning's children. Brother Martin nipped Jesuit 17-14, so that eliminates the Brother Martin Crusaders. So I think that kind of rounds us out a little bit for our high school action. We coming up, stay tuned. We'll be back in just about 2 minutes. We'll have a lot of action coming up. We'll be talking about Southern University, the SWAC Western Division champions, as we'll talk about last week's game and also the should be a blowout today. Some LSU action, and of course the NFL and the world of pro sports. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 WHYR. All right. Area code 225-343-9927, 225-343-9927. If you'd like to get in on the conversation, you're listening to Louisiana All American Sports. I'm Eric Hatfield, along with Coach Perry Daniels.
And now we're going to transition to the Bluff, where the Jaguars are taking on Clark Atlanta this week in their final home game, which is senior night up on the Bluff. So those of you fans that are in town, you may want to check out your Jaguars for the final time in the friendly confines of AEW Mumford Stadium tonight at 6 o'clock. The visiting team, Clark Atlanta, is 3-6. They're a Division II team. The Southern University Jaguars should have no problem destroying them today.
Yeah.
As they move on and prepare for the SWAC championship in Houston on December the 7th. Last week, our Southern Jags went up to Alabama, and they were the Louisiana team that came out of Alabama with a W on their side.
At least somebody did.
At least someone did, as they beat the Alabama State Hornets. And Dre Joseph had a tremendous game They fell down in the game, Eric?
Correct. Southern University was trailing 21-7 in the second quarter, and that's when Coach Dawson Odoms cracked that whip, threatened to put the helmet and pads on in practice if they didn't get their heads in the game, and they did. Southern marched back in that game, nipping Alabama State 31-28. Dre Joseph and Mike Jones. Mike Jones were the two stories in that game. Dre Joseph's final stat line, 432 yards passing.
Who?
Mike Jones with 5 receptions, 211 yards, and 3 touchdowns to Mike Jones.
Yeah.
Dre Joseph, 432 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 3 to Mike Jones, 1 interception. Southern really marched back in that game. They actually, like I said, they were down 21-7 in the second. They came back in that game. They took a lead. Then they went tit for tat with ASU in the fourth quarter before finally taking the lead for good, 31-28. We talked about last week how that's Alabama State within the world of FCS football is a quality opponent.
That was a quality
on the road.
victory. That was a quality victory.
They went there. They fell behind and came back. I'm feeling really good about Southern heading into the SWAC championship. Now, I didn't do my research, but was JSU the Eastern Conference champion?
Yes, they were. By Southern beating Alabama State, that clinched a Eastern Conference championship for Jackson State.
Okay. Oh, that would do it. So, everything is kind of interrelated in the wonderful world of SWAC football. So, really looking forward to that SWAC championship game. You can hear that SWAC championship game for free live at Louisiana All American Sports.com. Perry and I will be bringing that to you from Houston, Texas on December the 7th, 2013. That's a Saturday, Pearl Harbor Day. Again, Louisiana All American Sports.com.
Stay tuned to next week's show. We still have some minor logistics to work out there before that broadcast, but I'm pretty confident that it's just a matter of loose ends.
All right, we won't send you guys on a mission. We'll definitely let you guys know beforehand.
Right.
But I got the chuck wagon already hitched up for Houston.
That's right.
Again, 343-9927, 343-9927 if you want to get in on the conversation. You're listening to Louisiana All American Sports. Also in the world of college football, we had LSU going on to Alabama. Last week we discussed how LSU had, how sometimes they can play up, sometimes they can play down, but how this game, for all intents and purposes, was their Super Bowl. They struggled a little bit on defense, but they rallied. They fell behind early. LSU rallied, came back in the game, tied the game in the third quarter, and the LSU Tiger faithful were hopeful that LSU could possibly pull off the upset. No. It was not to be. Alabama just went all off in the second half after LSU had tied the score. It was kind of hard to look at, to tell you the truth. Same old issues. They continue to have shoddy tackling. They continue to have missed assignments in the secondary. It's epidemic. T.J. Yeldon went for 133 yards and 2 touchdowns. Chunks of that came off in the second half. Every time what really crushed the Tigers was on third down, sometimes third and short, sometimes third and long, but they had opportunities to get the ball back and give themselves a chance, and it just did not happen last week.
And that's amazing, Eric. They're so proficient offensively on third down that defensively they can't seem to get off the field on third down, or they couldn't against the Tide at least.
All right, so we have some folks calling in. Perry, you want to grab that?
I'm going to grab that. Yes, sir. All right.
All right, so we have a guest.
We have a special guest. Hello. All right, we have a special guest on the telephone. You are live on the radio. Right now, I'd like to introduce a gentleman by the name of Eric Dunham. He's in town for the Southern University Clark Atlanta football game. Eric Dunham is a former Southern University Jaguar baseball player. He was a pitcher as well as a shortstop from 87 through 91, playing for the great coach Roger Cador. Eric, you there?
Yes, I'm here, sir.
All right. Eric, tell me this now. Tell me about that experience of playing for Coach Cador.
It was an experience of a lifetime. I wouldn't trade it for nothing in the world. Roger Cador, we used to call him Roger the Dodger.
Roger the Dodger Cador. And you guys had some pretty good teams back then, right?
Huh?
Yeah, you guys had some had a pretty good baseball team then?
Yes, sir. We won a few SWAC championships.
Okay. Now, you also had an opportunity to go check out the Southern University basketball game since you've been in town since Wednesday or Thursday night, I believe that was. You made it up to Southern University. Tell us what can we expect out of this Jaguar basketball team? I think you saw the Jaguar Tulane game. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
The game was okay, but we need to start moving without the ball on offense. We need to work on our free throws, and we need to put a body on the cutter on defense. Overall,
That's pretty good, Cat.
the team looks promising. But the only thing I love about it wasn't a division game, so we have a lot to work on and improve on.
That's awesome. Eric Dunham is also known as Cat Eye to a lot of the Southern Jaguar faithful. You may have seen him at a basketball game or at a football game getting the crowd pumped up and raring to go. And those are words of wisdom. Man, did you ever play any basketball? Did you ever coach any basketball? That was pretty good right there. They got to defend the cutter. And where'd you get that information?
Well, I grew up as a sportsman, but I just chose baseball as my chosen way of life.
All right. I hear that. Well, tell me this, man. We're going to ask you about the Saints, and then we're going to let you go, man. Tell me, what do you think? We've got 2 Saints games coming up. The show is once a week, every Saturday. So tomorrow the Saints play the 49ers. Give me your thoughts on that game.
To all you Baton Rouge and Louisiana native faithfuls, go 49ers.
Boo! Boo!
It's gonna be a whole lot of gore.
And you know what, Eric? I'm gonna be honest with you. That kind of concerns me as well. The 49ers run the ball so well, and the Saints' rushing defense is not very good. That does concern me with the San Francisco 49ers. So you're picking them to win tomorrow's game?
Well, my gut feeling says the 49ers, but the team with the most points gonna win.
Well, of course. Of course.
Thank you, John Madden.
You got a degree from Southern University for that? Okay, last one. Tell me about the Saints in Atlanta. They go play them Thursday night up in Atlanta. I'm going to try to take your good friend and line brother to that game while I'm in Atlanta next week. So tell me, who do you think is going to win that game?
Well, the Saints will be coming off a short week, so rise, dirty birds, rise, dirty birds.
Wow.
Well, that'd be a first.
That would. And that would be an upset, as bad as the Atlanta Falcons have been playing. But with it being a rivalry, you might be on to something there, Cat Eye, since we did beat them here in New Orleans.
Nipped them, yeah.
Yeah, barely beat them here in New Orleans. I think they were playing much better football than they're currently playing, though, the Atlanta Falcons.
They also had Roddy White and Julio Jones.
Right. So, okay. Well, we've got you. We've got you on record. Everybody out there heard you. You're picking the Saints to lose tomorrow,
Games in a row.
as well as against the Atlanta Falcons. All right, man. So,
Games in a row.
okay, I hear you. So I'll reach back out to you in Natchez if you're right. All right. We have this segment that we do on Louisiana All American Sports that we call I Told You So. So we play back all predictions the next week. So next week, make sure you tune in, have your friends tune in, and they can hear what you picked this week.
At Southern University, 45, Clock Atlanta, 10.
All right, my brother. Take care, man.
The fans at halftime, that's a gimmick.
All right, I'm going to holler.
But we mad because they didn't put up the drum line.
All right. Well, thank you very, very much. That was Cat. I didn't actually caught the nickname was so cool, but I actually missed. His
name is Eric Dunham.
Dunham. Okay. Yes. AKA Mr. Cat Eye. That was a very regaling and entertaining telephone call there. So, now we're back and on with the show. So actually, that's a pretty good transition since we had a Southern alum coming as we were wrapping up the preview of the Southern game. We talked about LSU-Alabama. LSU is off this week. Coming to town next week is 1 week from today,
right,
is Mr. Johnny Football and the Texas A&M Aggies. Of course, we'll be discussing that quite a bit. It's going to be a 2:30 kickoff on CBS, and we'll be talking about that on Louisiana All American Sports next Saturday at 11 a.m. So stay tuned. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds.
I'm not sure we're quite ready for a break. I was going to ask you, since we mentioned Johnny Football, well, let's talk a little Heisman favorite.
Yeah, well, sure, absolutely. I mean, you got the Heisman Trophy race, and it's actually going into a discussion we'll have momentarily. But with the Heisman Trophy race, we have a couple of I think, in my personal opinion, we have 3 serious contenders remaining at this point. My personal vote at this point would go to Johnny Manziel, the Texas A&M quarterback, Mr. Johnny Football. If I were casting a vote today, my first place vote would go to Johnny Manziel. But I'll tell you, if there was a 1A vote, it would go to Jameis Winston of Florida State University, a spectacular quarterback. Just amazing to watch the way he can flick the ball in the air and hit Rashad Green or another one of his receivers 75 yards away, it seems like. But Mr. Winston's in a little bit of hot water, and we're going to discuss that after this next break coming up. And my third place vote would go to Marcus Mariota of the Oregon State Ducks. And, while he's been spectacular all year, when he ran to Stanford has a very good defense by Pac-12 standards, but he was bottled up for 3/4 of the game, and it resulted in Oregon picking up a loss and then being knocked out of the national championship, realistically out of national championship considerations. I don't think they can win the Pac-12 at this point. So that is a tough break, and just in a close race, sometimes it's the smallest things that separate one from the separate teams, and I'll tell you that little snafu might have been what bumped him down to third place. So we're going to take a break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. You are listening to Louisiana All American Sports on 96.9 WHYR, Baton Rouge Community Radio. All right, we are back on Louisiana All American Sports. This is Eric Hatfield here with Perry Daniels. So since we're talking about the Heisman race, very unsettling story began to develop in the past week involving Florida State University quarterback Jameis Winston. Winston, as you know, is a sophomore quarterback. He has almost video game-like numbers, it seems, every week that he's been putting up. And last week, the public, at least myself, this is the first I had heard of it, was that the redshirt freshman was involved in an alleged sexual assault incident last year in December of 2012. Apparently, from what's been revealed to the public by law enforcement and the appropriate authorities, that case was investigated. Winston was not even questioned in that case. No charges were filed last year. Fast forward 11 months later, the case is being reopened. Witnesses are being re-questioned. Winston has retained counsel, and it's a very. I hate hearing about situations like this. You have a great story with this young man who's just an incredible football player, because in addition to being able to bomb the ball, he can take off and run if he needs to, although he's not a run-first quarterback. And then shot at the Heisman, another redshirt freshman going toe-to-toe with Johnny Manziel, who was a redshirt freshman when he won the Heisman, and now this pops up.
Well, Eric, Puff Daddy and Biggie had a song, the more money we come across, the more problems we see. So now famous Jameis is starting to, see some of the results of that.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. That's what happened to Johnny Manziel. Right.
Well, I mean, Johnny Manziel, of course, I'd rather be accused of getting money for my autographs than, a little rape action.
Sexual assault.
Yeah.
A sexual assault.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, big difference.
Right, no, you're right.
But it comes with the fame. When that spotlight gets on you, it gets a chance to see all of you. And you've got to be prepared for that. And Winston, hopefully the young man is totally exonerated in this situation.
I sincerely hope so.
No charges are brought against him. There are some issues that are bigger than the game of football.
That's right.
So let's hope that Jameson doesn't have to see the legal system, and that he's able to play football, whether he wins the Heisman Trophy, whether he wins the national championship. The young man has a bright future in the game of football if he so desires.
Right.
So, it questions. Here's the problem with the story, though. You question, why now? Why now are we starting to hear about this? This happened over 12 months ago. The young man was never questioned, and now all of a sudden it just comes to the light. It sounds like just noise, Eric. I don't think there's a whole lot to this, and I hesitate to say that because there's probably some young lady out there who feels that she was violated in some capacity.
Right, and there's a lot that we just don't know at this point. I'm not big into conspiracy theories, but let me tell you something. When you're dealing with, you always have careers involved. When you have a person, a high-profile personality, everything around that person, everything a few degrees from that person is magnified. You have district attorneys who have to get elected. You have law enforcement, sheriffs that need support. You have law enforcement that are accountable to city personnel, local personnel, their politics involved with that. And anything involving Jameis Winston is going to get names in the newspaper, especially if they do a good job, especially if they happen to be right and crack the case. But regardless, anything involving this young man is going to get inked. Now, this happened a year ago when he was a redshirt. He wasn't playing. He was a nobody.
It was a non-story.
Yeah, to stick with the Mike Jones theory, back then they didn't want me. Now they be all on me. And now they're all now they're all on him. Now that he's a Heisman candidate, and even if this has no legs at all, you're going to have and I actually read the district attorney's name a couple of times. It probably will be burned in my memory by the time it's over. Can you imagine down in Tallahassee where people are really focusing on this? You're going to have a DA, a sheriff, and or a police chief. I'm not sure if it's municipal or county authorities involved, but you're going to have people whose names are going to get out there. And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but what I am saying is there are possible ulterior motives. I won't even mention that you do have, Johnny Football in there for the Heisman, Marcus Mariota. Who's to say that some letters or some audio or new witnesses couldn't have popped up that could have compelled law enforcement to look in this further? There are a lot of stakes in the game, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist.
Right.
It could be perfectly legitimate. There could be new witnesses that came up, but the timing is just so hard to ignore, Perry.
You can't help but to notice it. And again, let's hope that if there is a victim in this case,
let's first hope there is no victim.
Right.
Let's hope it's bull.
Right. But there's nothing to it.
Right.
But obviously, someone complained to the police department, to the Tallahassee Police Department. Right. So that there's something there. Now, whether or not Jameson was involved, and whether or not it was an actual violation, we don't know. He could have
just been there.
Right. So let's keep our ears and eyes open to that. Let's not pass judgment. We do this far too much in our society. So listen up, silly mortals. In our society, you are innocent until proven guilty. You are innocent until proven guilty. No matter how many times on the TV you hear or see these allegations, they are just that, allegations. No one has proven that anyone has done anything here.
Well, there's another rub, though, because under Florida State University rules, if an athlete is charged with a felony, he is suspended from play until that felony charge is resolved or dropped or adjudicated. So, if I'm let's say I'm a slimy, and I'm not saying that anyone from the University of Miami is slimy, but let's say I was slimy and involved in the University of Miami. That has happened before. And you're in a tight ACC race. I'm just saying. Big booty girls, come with it. I mean, even that guy was the face of the University of Miami program. Michael Irvin. We can go on and on about some of the characters who've had some acquaintances with the penal system and not penalty flags there at Miami. I'm just throwing it out there. I have no idea. I have no information. What I'm saying is there are a lot of possibilities. There are a lot of stakes in the game, and when you have a high-profile case, it is possible. It is possible something can go beyond the headlines. I've not heard any details of this assault, which is suspicious to me. You'd think they'd tell us if it's a groping or a date.
Well, a lot of times in sexual situations, They do try to give us the details.
Something.
Even if they don't.
Did it happen at a party? Was it? I mean, we've been told nothing.
Any of that information.
Nothing.
Right.
And people talk, and nobody's. You haven't heard even some student blabbing or talking to Deadspin or anything like that. It's just really
something
dicey to me. It's really, really dicey to me. So. So I hope that works out the best for all people involved. I really do.
Now back onto the football field.
Yeah.
This team can really challenge for the national championship now.
They're sitting pretty right now. I mean, they're controlling their own fate. Number 2 in the BCS. Right now, they're on a collision course with Alabama. I mean, you have Alabama sitting there at the top. You have Florida State. A lot of people went down. In the last couple of weeks, you had Oregon State going up in flames. Stanford already.
Oregon.
Did I say Oregon State? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant Oregon.
Yeah.
You had Oregon going up in flames before the eyes of the nation. Stanford already has one loss on their resume. Baylor, on the other hand, Baylor University is an interesting one because we talked about them briefly last week. I mean, they are 6 and 7-0 now. And they have, I was questioning last week. I always say in the Big Ten, defense is kind of optional, but they went to Oklahoma, which is not a defensive optional school, and they throttled the Oklahoma Sooners. I mean, they really put it to them.
Right.
So ran up a lot.
Quarterback's putting up some unbelievable numbers.
Oh yeah, he's becoming. He's getting some Heisman-worthy run himself. I want to say his name is. I always want to call him Peck, and that's not it. His last name starts with a P, and his first name is Bryce. They also have a very special running back at Baylor who's ripping off like 10 yards a carry.
Right.
He has another name. It's a very long name. It starts with an L. And I just cannot remember off the top of my head. I didn't really have Baylor in my talking points today.
Right.
But that team has got weapons, and I'll be very honest with you. We try to keep up with as much as we can, but I had paid Baylor very little attention before last week's game with Oklahoma and had planned to write them off. But now, when they put up those same video game numbers, 40 or 45 points or however many it is, they're averaging close to 50 a game. When they put up similar numbers on Oklahoma and blew them to smithereens, that really got my attention because Oklahoma's a team that has a very sound running game, as far as Big 12 defenses go. I said Big 10 earlier, that was wrong. Big 12 defenses go, that's as solid as it gets. So we'll keep our eyes on Baylor. They're definitely creeping up in the picture.
Actually, Eric, you were trying to sell us a couple of weeks ago on this other team out of the Big 12 who hasn't won a game since you mentioned their names on the show.
Man, Texas Tech. You want to talk about turning out to be a fraud. I mean, you want to talk about being a fraud. I really thought, Texas Tech, when they had Mike Leach there, ran up a lot of big numbers. Now, that's a team that is a defense optional team, and they're also a running game optional team, but they were passing the ball so efficiently, I thought they might have a real shot there. They were unbeaten at one point. I thought they had a real shot in challenging for the national championship. Yeah, get it all out now. But I'm just saying, I thought they had a real opportunity until they crossed blades with Oklahoma, and they were in Lubbock, and Oklahoma showed them what it was about. Oklahoma had gotten kicked around by Texas, and I think Texas Tech really thought they were going to bully the Sooners. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Bob Stoops and his crew had something different to say about that. Now Texas Tech hasn't been able to buy a victory. So I guess Baylor right now looks like the real deal, and Texas Tech looks like fool's gold.
And their quarterback for the Baylor Bears is Bryce Petty.
Petty. I wanted to say Peck. No, Bryce Petty. That's it.
Yes.
And there's a running back averaging 9 a game. He has a really long name, starts with the letter L. Not 9 yards a game, 9 yards a carry. And he's a beast. And he stampeded all over the Sooners last week as he's been stampeding over people all year. I kind of question the quality of their competition, but not any longer.
Well, the Big 12's kind of down this year.
Right.
But, hey, they're winning, man, and they're winning big. So, it remains to be seen. They're playing well enough to get a BCS bid.
Right now they control their own destiny for a BCS bid. They control their own destiny for the Big 12 championship. And I will say, Baylor is starting to rebuild a tradition there. They are. You have Robert Griffin III, who took them to a really respectable record. He and Kendall Marshall,
right.
Hooking up a lot. And you might have thought that was I don't want to say flash in the pan, but possibly a one-shot deal with these guys. But Lachey Seastrunk, that's his name. L-A-C-H-E, I can't even pronounce it. Lash Seastrunk.
Okay.
He is an animal. He's got to be over 1,000 yards by now, or awfully close. Going into last week's game, he was averaging over 9 yards a carry, and he is. I've seen a couple of highlights. This guy's like a truck with legs. But Baylor could be around for years to come because we're starting to see a program being built now. It wasn't just flash in the pan. It wasn't a one-shot deal. They've got players, and they have 2 receivers. And their names do escape me, who also putting up some gaudy numbers. So keep an eye on those Baylor Bears out there in the Big 12.
Right.
We do have a big game today in SEC action. We have the University of Georgia Bulldogs, currently ranked number 25, going on down to Auburn University as they're in a showdown with the Auburn Tigers. Now, the Auburn Tigers have flown under the radar. They've flown under the radar quite a bit.
Their only losses to LSU.
That's right. Their only loss is to LSU earlier this year, and they've climbed back up all the way to number 7 in the polls. So you have Auburn. They have 1 SEC loss, and they, at the moment, control their own destiny. I mean, at the moment, they have an opportunity to step into the square with Alabama in the Iron Bowl after Thanksgiving and represent. They have a shot to represent the SEC West in the championship game. And the thing is that Alabama.
Now, Eric, all of my Missouri folks, man, all my St. Louis people are saying, well, what about the Missouri Tigers? We're just walking right over them and giving the SEC championship to Alabama. They still have to get through the Missouri Tigers.
Well, the Missouri Tigers. You have Matty Mark, who's doing a heck of a job out there. This is a guy who was on the bench, deep on the bench at the start of the year. But, St. Louis, Missouri is one of those teams that I'm not sold on them yet. When they had an opportunity to prove themselves, they got Peter rolled. When they got into a real SEC contest, they got hammered pretty badly earlier this year, so I'm just not so sure that I'm sold on the Missouri Tigers yet. I think Gary Pinkel's done a heck of a job. I mean, it was a local commentator, Matt Moscona, that described on 104.5 ESPN that described them as quote-unquote the toe cheese of the SEC coming into the season, and clearly they're going to have the last laugh. It looks like they're going to have the last laugh here as they're on pace. They have every opportunity to win the SEC East, but I have no doubt the winner's coming out of the West. Moving back to Auburn,
yes.
And Georgia, though, the University of Alabama, their game is strong defense, strong running game, efficient passing. Auburn's strength is very stingy defense and an oppressive running game. Their quarterback, Nick Marshall, he's a decent passer. He's not great. I'd say he's probably below average as far as arm strength and reading defenses, but he can take off with his feet. This year, he's averaging 7 yards a carry, a total of 734 yards and 7 touchdowns. That's an impressive stat line for a running back,
that is.
Let alone a quarterback.
That is.
Trey Mason is their primary running back. He already has 1,000 yards, 16 touchdowns on the season, 16 touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry. So the other thing is Georgia's had trouble stopping folks this year.
Yes.
So that's why I think Auburn's going to literally run over them. Although, Aaron Murray and that bunch, they can pass the ball. Todd Gurley is back in the lineup. He has 625 yards in spite of missing 3 games. Not to mention he went out early in the game against LSU, averaging 6 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns. So, we'll see who can outrun the most. But Auburn also has, and I don't have their names, they have 2 backup running backs that have gaudy per carry averages.
So you're saying that Auburn's going to win this game?
Yes, I think the Auburn Tigers are going to win this game.
That's going to make the Iron Bowl for the Western.
That's the de facto SEC West Division Championship game.
Between Alabama and Auburn.
Correct.
And the winner of that game, you think will be the SEC champion, easily beating the Missouri Tigers in the SEC championship.
I think Missouri is a bridesmaid, and also they're the Washington Generals right now of the SEC.
Washington Generals are the team that plays the Harlem Globetrotters in every city around the country.
And they get hammered. So before we move on to the world of pro sports, which we'll talk about in just a moment, let's go back to last week while I put my stamp on it, saying that, number one, I think Auburn's going to win today, and I think they're going to face Alabama, and that winner wins the SEC. Let's go back to last week and see where, see where we could say, we told you so, and where you could say, I told you so, here on Louisiana All American Sports.
I told you. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? 'Cause I told you. And when did I tell you? A long time ago. And what did I say will happen when I told you? Exactly what just happened.
I'm going to go on record. I do think Alabama is going to win that game.
Oh, there's a big surprise.
I'm going to have to go with Alabama here and Nick Saban.
I think I'm going to have a heart attack and die from not surprised.
Barry, you got any thoughts on this upcoming game with the Saints and Cowboys and the Louisiana Superdome on Sunday night?
Yeah, man, the Cowboys might as well not even waste their time showing up.
Well, I'm thinking a very close game. I'm thinking it could be a Garrett Hartley field goal that puts the Saints ahead for good, or maybe even a walk-off by Garrett Hartley.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking as well, Eric. Really close game. Last team with the ball wins.
Win in blowout fashion, 49-17. They set an NFL record 40 first down. Guess how many the Cowboys got, Garrett?
Oh, it was 9?
9. It was 9.
Yeah.
It was less than 10. It was 9.
9 times.
9 times.
But to have a bunch of no-names out there trying to stop Graham, Colston, and Sproles, it was beyond laughable. It was a pathetic performance by Dallas all around, offense, defense, and special teams, getting those 3 in there.
Yeah.
Noel Jackson.
Music satisfaction. Right, so stay tuned for that. We've got San Francisco playing
The Carolina Panthers. Hosting the Carolina Panthers.
And you know what? Cam Newton's really playing well right now.
I just think the Niners are going to have the edge in that game.
And you may be right. Coach Jackson's going to love to hear me say this. But, yeah, I'll go with the 49ers on this one.
No.
Actually, there's a black and blue division game. I apologize. I want to get to that. The Chicago Bears really surprised us last week as they sucker punched the Green Bay Packers. Now Jay Cutler comes back this week. They're going to play at the Lions. The Lions have all those weapons: Megatron, Matt Stafford, Reggie Bush. Even though it's in Chicago, I like the Lions in this game, Eric.
I like the Lions as well, Eric. I like the way that team is built.
So, yeah, we were definitely right and wrong on a couple. I never saw the Carolina Panthers just holding the 49ers beating the 49ers by only scoring 10 points.
Right.
So,
that's a real football team. That defense for the Carolina Panthers is real.
Well, let me tell you, they have a guy, a middle linebacker named Luke, I'm going to probably butcher his name, but Luke Kuechel, Kuechel. But I'll tell you what, that guy is, if you don't know about him, you better recognize, because he is the real deal. Look at this guy. Listen to this guy's stat line. This guy, this is a defensive player. So the fact that we're only halfway through the season, he has any stat line is kind of fascinating to me. And actually, why don't we go ahead and cue up the music for this Sunday coming up for the NFL action. So we have Sunday Night Football coming up. Sunday football and Sunday Night Football. This is actually a Monday night game. The Patriots are going to Carolina to play the Panthers, since we brought them up. Kuechly, Kuechly, Luke Kuechly. He's in his second year. He was a high draft pick last year, first round pick. He has 75 tackles, 7 tackles for a loss from the middle linebacker position, 1 sack, and 3 interceptions. You have defensive backs. Eric Reed, who's for San Francisco, second-year guy at LSU, is having an outstanding season. He has 3 interceptions.
Right.
So what that tells us is that this guy is a real disruptive force in that defense.
That's right. Unfortunately, though, the Carolina Panthers go down this week to the New England Patriots and Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, Eric.
Well, here's the thing. I think that could happen. I'm going to go on record as saying the Patriots are going to win, but I'm only doing that strictly on Tom Brady's good credit.
Okay.
Because I'm looking at it on paper. I'm going to tell you something, Perry. On paper, this Monday night game really looks like it could favor the Carolina Panthers. First of all, they're at home.
Yeah.
The Patriots, have had trouble. They've had some defensive troubles, and then D'Angelo Williams is coming back. Is getting really back into the lineup.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not D'Angelo Williams. Jonathan Stewart is getting back into the lineup to complement D'Angelo Williams. D'Angelo Williams already has a 565 yards rushing on his own. With that 1-2 punch of Jonathan Stewart back, that's going to really possibly wear down the New England defense. And New England's had some trouble stopping opponents this year in key situations, more through the air than with the run. But the Panthers can pound that ball.
I hear you, and all of that makes sense. But if you give Bill Belichick and Tom Brady an extra day to prepare, I've got to take them.
I don't know, man. I'm sorry, I said they had trouble in there. They have trouble stopping the run. I think they're last in the AFC against the run. We'll see. I'm taking them on Tom Brady's good credit.
Right.
Because I do think the Panthers are still haven't crossed that hump yet and haven't gotten over the top yet. Right. So we'll see. Moving on. Speaking about waiting all week for Sunday night, we have the big game of the week between the Kansas City Chiefs, the unbeaten 9-0 Kansas City Chiefs,
9-0,
and the 8-1 Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning in the building to take on to go ahead mano-a-mano and probably begin to settle all this, whether or not Kansas City under Andy Reid and Alex Smith are a bunch of noise or if they're the real McCoy.
No, Andy Reid's one of the better coaches in the league. The Kansas City Chiefs are for real. Watch out.
Well, we shall see. We'll get the prediction. Before I go through the particulars, I'm going to get it out of the way. I expect Denver to win that game at Mile High. Peyton Manning, in spite of the ankle injury, I just think Peyton Manning's not going to lose that game.
Okay, I hear you. I'm going to go, because it's Mile High, I think I'm going to go with you, Eric.
I thought the Missouri bias was about to come out of you in a minute. That's a hard place to win a football game.
It is.
But you look at this, you look at some of the particulars. I mean, I will say this much. The Chiefs took right tackle Eric Fisher with the first pick in the draft. Now, linemen don't pile up stats,
right,
but you can see a whole difference. Alex Smith seems very, very comfortable back there with a lot of time. The few times he's been sacked, it's because he's held on to the ball, not because he has not had time to throw it.
Right.
Alex Smith doesn't have a gaudy stat line, but he does have a 60% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, 4 picks, so he's very efficient when he puts the ball in the air. Jamal Charles is having another feast of a year, 725 yards already. We're only halfway through the season, 6 touchdowns, averaging 4.3 a carry. You have to think that Eric Fisher's presence is making a big difference in the trenches on that line.
They are, but also, you said it earlier this year, Eric, don't underestimate the power of coaching.
Right. COACHING. Really quick, folks, we have about 9 minutes left. We want you to stay tuned. At 12 o'clock, we have Noel Jackson, Music Satisfaction, coming up at 12 o'clock noon. Very, very good show. But you have... you're right. I mean, coaching makes a big difference, and Andy Reid has almost turned the culture around there overnight, although there's one player that apparently could use a little bit more of his tutelage. And Andy Reid has a history of dealing with troubled young men with drug problems. He, sadly lost his son a couple of years ago from that, and this one doesn't appear to be as serious, but could have an impact on the team and a career. We'll get to that momentarily. But Peyton Manning, though, he did roll his ankle in last week's win over the Chargers, but 33 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, 71% completion, and a chip on his shoulder the size of Texas. I do think he has something to prove. So we touched on drug issues. This one not nearly as serious as the tragedy that befell Coach Reid a couple of years ago, but I guarantee you that after something so sad, he is very sensitive to that. But they have a key player, somebody you all may be very familiar with.
LSU.
Yeah.
LSU.
Former Louisiana State University running back, Jesus. Former wide receiver. Dwayne Bowe got himself in a little bit of hot water. He was driving in Kansas City, and apparently he was pulled over and had a duffel bag of the wacky tobacco there, and apparently was suspected to be intoxicated. He was booked for possession of copious quantities of marijuana.
Copious quantities.
And this was something, I don't know how much truth there is to this, but Jim Rome, CBS Sports Radio, on his radio show, said that Dwayne Bowe allegedly asked one of the officers if Sonic was still open.
He had the munchies.
Are you kidding me? I mean, you're getting pulled over for possession of marijuana there, and you're going to ask if Sonic is still open. I mean, Jack in the Box would have been the next best one. They have the stoner commercials, but I was just shocked and amazed, stunned and appalled. But Dwayne Bowe, he will play this weekend. I found it funny. People were like, "Oh, Andy Reid should teach him a lesson and suspend him." First of all, he has a game to win, so he's not going to cut his nose to spite his face with his starting wide receiver. Second of all, what's he going to do? Make the guy mad? He's just going to demand a trade to the team they're playing this weekend in Denver, where he wouldn't have a problem at all with his marijuana.
Right. Well, only because the league is still a banned substance in the league, but he wouldn't have gotten pulled over
in the first place. Exactly.
Denver, because it's legal.
Shoot, he'd be at Sonic enjoying his flurry and his blast, some chili Frito pies, some ocean water. I mean, shoot, he'd be having a Sonic time time right now,
Right.
like those two goobers you see in the commercial.
Right.
So anyway, back to the NFL action. We talked about the Saints and Niners early. Just real quick, I want to throw in my 2 cents. I do think the New Orleans Saints are going to win that game. The last time the Saints lost a game in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome when Sean Payton was coaching was in 2010. San Francisco is struggling with their passing game. I mean, they don't put the ball up in the air a whole lot, and then it looks like Jim Harbaugh, my goodness, I'm just off today. Jim Harbaugh is telling him is trying to keep him more in the pocket, and that just he doesn't seem to be completely comfortable there. It's going to come down to Frank Gore. If the Saints can contain Frank Gore and get any kind of rushing performance like they did last week out of Pierre Thomas, and Mark Ingram actually finally showed up for once, I think the Saints are going to win that game. If it turns into a shootout, the Saints are going to win. This is the same team that racked up 40 first downs and over 600 yards offense against the Dallas Cowboys.
They can beat anybody in that Superdome, it seems like, Eric.
It does. I mean, if they keep that up, they do have to go to Seattle for Monday Night Football on December 2nd, and that's a hard place to win. If they can rip that off, if somehow the football gods can smile upon the Saints and they can rip off a win in Seattle, you got this on record. If the Saints do that and don't have a meltdown, don't have an injury to Drew Brees, and clinch home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs, I think they're going to the Super Bowl. Only once in life have I ever said I thought the Saints were going to the Super Bowl, as diehard a fan I am, and that was in 2009. That worked out pretty well. I'm not saying I'm the good luck charm, but I am saying I'm reading the tea leaves here, and it is lined up. A healthy Drew Brees plus home field will be playing in New York, in New Jersey.
That's right.
In February.
But let's talk about Sunday. And as I stated with Cat Eye in our phone interview today, I am concerned about the Saints being able to stop that running attack of the San Francisco 49ers. It is one of the best in the league with running the football. So, but I don't think that the 49ers are going to be, even with that, I don't think they're going to be able to score enough points to keep up with Drew Brees, Sproles, and the tight end. Jimmy Graham. Yeah. I just don't think that they're going to be able to match the Saints point for point. Now, if they played in San Francisco, it may be a different story. Right, so I agree. I'm going to pick the Saints to win this game, and then they come right back Thursday and play the Atlanta Falcons. And unfortunately, Saints fans, I'm going to say this, and I don't like saying this, but I think that the winning streak comes to an end in Atlanta. Because it's a rivalry game, and no matter how bad the Falcons are playing, they're going to play the Saints very well, and they're going to play inspired football, and I do think they'll pull out the victory against the Saints Thursday night. Well, they can be inspired, and they can wish in one hand, poop in the other, and see which one fills up first, because the Atlanta Falcons do not have Roddy White. They do not have Julio Jones. And even though when they go to Atlanta, of course, there's a Thursday game, so the Saints fans won't have as much of a chance to jam the Georgia Dome as they traditionally do, and take an edge off of that home field advantage of the Dirty Birds. But I mean, there's a lot of transient Saints fans there already. Right, that's true. They went there after the storm, and they never came back. That's right. But I think that without their passing threats, and the Saints have an excellent passing defense, they're creeping up on like they're top 5 in the league, I want to say, against the pass. I don't have the numbers in front of me. They can force turnovers, they confuse good quarterbacks, and Matt Ryan, without his 2 favorite weapons, is at least, well, if you have an AK-47 and an Uzi, and you're given a little Saturday night special and a revolver, you're in a different kind of gunfight. Yeah, but once again, it's the running game, and they don't have one. I think you'll see one against the Saints, and I don't think you need a whole lot. The NFL is full of talented running backs, and they come a dime a dozen. That's why you don't see running backs going number 1 in the draft choice anymore. Right. I mean, you got Steven Jackson there, who's had a borderline Hall of Fame career, but he's been nicked up. He's been nicked up a lot of the year, and he has been. But when he's healthy, and the last time he was healthy, he ran all over the Saints. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure if I think he's going to play, but I'm not sure how much he's going to play. I can't even name their backups. Their backups have been proven to be incompetent for most of the year. So we'll see. If the running game can always give the Saints a problem. Even DeMarco Murray made Saints fans sweat a little bit in the first half, but they got their hands around it, forced Dallas to have to throw the football, and that was all she wrote for them. Real quick, because we got 2 minutes left, hope for those of you who are basketball fans, I hope you guys had a chance to look at that delightful treat that we had last week, that doubleheader on Tuesday night that ESPN carried, kicking off the college basketball season. The NCAA got this one right. They put the number 4 Kansas Jayhawks against the Duke Blue Devils, number 5, in Chicago to kick off the season. We were treated to
a show. Kansas did pull away in that game in the very end, but boy, oh boy, did we get a treat from a couple of, as Dick Vitale would say, a couple of diaper dandies there. We had Kentucky's Jabari Parker, who put on a heck of a show, a heck of a clinic, but they came up, sorry, that was against Michigan State. Well, so Michigan State and Kentucky was the first part of that game. They came up short against the senior-laden MSU team. Keith Appling stepped it up. Tom Izzo proved why he was so great, but Jabari Parker almost helped them single-handedly win that game.
Remember that name, fans, NBA fans. Jabari Parker is going to be an impact player in the NBA. He's going to be an impact this year in the NCAA.
Right.
But next year, he's one and done.
Right.
He's going to be an impact player.
And then Julius Randle, the
young phenom.
You know, I'm
out of
sorry,
Dallas.
folks. I think I must have been hitting the wacky tobacco like Dwayne Bowe. I've got my teams and everything messed up. Let me back up. Jabari Parker is the superstar for the Duke Blue Devils. It was Julius Randle that almost helped the Kentucky Wildcats beat Michigan State on their own.
Right.
Keith Appling and those seniors stepped up. Appling's averaging 17 points a game, 7 rebounds a game, 6 assists per game this season. The other game was Duke with Jabari Parker and Andrew Wiggins with the Kansas Jayhawks. Wiggins put on a clinic, a show, dunking the ball, all kinds of crazy stuff. And Dick Vitale actually said that Andrew Wiggins is going to the Hall of Fame, baby. Let's not get carried away. Let's not put him in Springfield yet. But I think there's going to be a lot of college basketball with those 3 young stars that we're going to get to enjoy. And the NCAA did it great putting it on our radar early. That's all the time we got for Coach Perry Daniels. I am Eric Hatfield. Stay tuned for Noel Jackson.
ADT, JNS, love you.
Stay tuned for Noel Jackson Music Satisfaction. As we always say, have a good afternoon.